Part 12. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bh Yaoye 11U. Chapter 113. After the tax card was withdrawn, Fenting Town ushered in its former prosperity. Maybe it was because I was severely suppressed before, so merchants were stocking up and the shelves were full. People also went out and were willing to visit various shops, and people came and went in each shop. The cloth shop is full of people pulling cloth to make summer clothes. After posting the death list, the town was very quiet for a while, but when people realized that they still had to go through the day, they were willing to go out and walk around. Fenting Town has swept away the haze that has lasted for many days, and people carrying large and small bags can be seen everywhere on the streets. There was joy on his face. Because of rumors that there may be another military conscription, the matchmaking business in the town is booming. Lu Shenke also looked at Lu Yizhu non-stop. Unexpectedly, Lu Yizhu has set her sights higher since her brother from the same mother was admitted as a scholar, and other people don't take her seriously. There was no one in town that she liked. Lu Shenke was so tormented by her that his mouth blistered. I hate it so much that I want to throw it away. But with such a girl, how could she throw it away? He ignored it for a few days, but soon people started talking about the stupid things the mother and daughter had done. Lu Shenke suddenly felt chest tight and breathless. How come you have the nerve to steal a big business in the county? Are you blocking other people's stores? Lu Shenke was ashamed and angry. He returned to Lu's house angrily and scolded Wu and Lu Yizhu. Is the young master of Linlang Pavilion something we can reach? There are many people in the family who can look up to us. How can you get such a big face? I have completely embarrassed you. You don't want to let our family hang out in Fenting Town, do you? How many people are watching your jokes? There is only one scholar in the family, and you are not a good person in the eyes of others, but you can't see yourself clearly. Lu Shenke scolded the two women without stopping, then threw away his sleeves. Unable to vent his frustration, he ran to Su Qingyu's shop. Seeing her busy in the front shop, he just nodded to her and went to the backyard. Su Qingnao was used to him visiting Lu Xiaobao every now and then, so she didn't care. But what happened today? With a black face? Su Qingnao told Su Qingliu and Zhou Dejiang, then turned and returned to the backyard. My father-in-law is here, so we can't pretend not to see him. When they arrived in the backyard, they saw Lu Shenke holding Lu Xiaobao and playing with him. I don't know if this little thing is strong-natured or courageous. He is a small person who likes others to throw him into the sky. He would only be happy if someone threw him away every day. Su Qingyu had always avoided this kind of weightless movement, which was suddenly going up and down. But this little thing really likes her and won't follow her anyway. Every day, if Zhou Dejiang, Su's father, Su Dehua, and others forget to play with him like this little thing will remind you. The little guy has a bad temper. If Su Qingnao hits him, he will turn away and ignore Su Qingnao. I would rather go hungry than breastfeed. Su Qingyu tortured him twice, and he would starve if he didn't eat. I don't want to spoil him. I didn't expect that this little thing would be carried to death. He wanted to be held by anyone, but not Su Qingyu. He would not drink milk. He would drink water when others fed him, but not Su Qingyu's milk. Later, Su Qingyu surrendered on her own. I just plan to wait until he is older and can talk, and then I can carry it with him. See who just passed who. In the backyard, Lu Shenke tossed Lu Xiaobao several times and saw him laughing loudly, which made Lu Shenke happy. His face was no longer so black and there was a smile on his face. I bet this little thing is still a worrier leaving grass, tisk tisk. Su Qingyu glanced at the little thing and saw that he was grinning happily and holding on to Lu Shenke's beard. She couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. This little thing is very strong, but I don't know if Lu Shenke is in pain or not. Su Qingyu pulled a basket of vegetables in front of her to choose from, while looking at Lu Shenke and Lu Xiaobao. Lu Shenke teased Lu Xiaobao for a while, held him in his arms and sat on the bench, looking at him dotingly. Even when his beard was pulled, he just showed his teeth and happily played with him as he pleased. Su Qingyu glanced at him. "Dad, are you busy today?" Lu Shenke paused. Ah. Ah. After a while, seeing that Su Qingyu didn't ask, she said to herself, "It's Yuzhi's marriage." Su Qingyu stopped talking. With her parents here, it was not her turn to talk about Lu Yuzhi's marriage. Lu Shenke sighed. "Your sister only wants to marry into a wealthy family, but it's so easy to get into a wealthy family. It's impossible for someone from a small family like ours to get into it. Besides, even if they don't dislike it, but can she really live a good life if she marries into a wealthy family? Your sister has no experience and doesn't know the rules of wealthy families. Besides, with her temperament, she will be eaten alive by others." Lu Shenke was chattering. He told this to Wu and Lu Yuzhu, but Lu Yuzhu didn't listen at all. Wu's mind was still clear, but she couldn't bear Yuzhu's repeated cries and begged her. Her heart softened, and she lost consciousness again when she was with Yuzhu. When Lu Shenke told Su Qingyu these things, Su Qingyu could occasionally add a sentence or two. It made Lu Shenke feel that he had found a close friend. He just held Xiaobao in his arms and babbled more and more. After talking for a long time, Su Qingyu finished selecting a basket of vegetables. Xiaobao fell asleep in his arms, and Lu Shenke was still talking. Fortunately, once Lu Xiaobao fell asleep, he was less affected by the environment, and Lu Shenke's words could not affect his sound sleep. Su Qingyu thought for a moment and said, "Dad, since Yuzhi doesn't like the people in our town, why don't you ask Bo Ziwiu's family to see if there are any candidates?" Su Qingyu simply didn't want to hear Lu Shenke talk about Lu Yuzhu anymore. Since Lu Yuzhu doesn't like people from Fengting town, let her marry to Pingchuan County. If Lu Bozu's family wanted to use Lu Bozu, they should find a suitable family for Lu Yuzhu. How they live in the future is Lu Yuzhu's business. She can't control it either. Su Qingyu didn't want to see Lu Shenke worried and distressed all day about Lu Yuzhu. When Lu Shenke heard what Su Qingyu said, he was stunned. After thinking about it, he felt that he could not leave this matter to his future in-laws. "I thought about it all the way back." When they got back to talk, Wu slapped her thigh and said that Lu Shenke finally came up with a good idea. "The next day, I went to Pingchuan County to have tea with my future mother-in-law. A few days later, I heard that Lu Yuzhu's marriage was settled. He was also a farmer and a scholar. He had farmland in the countryside and a shop in the county, but he had many sons, so studying was a waste of money. I heard that Lu Yuzhu had land as a dowry and it was agreed by the Sun family in the county, so I immediately agreed." Lu Shenzu was still disgusted and didn't want to respond, but Lu Shenke suppressed her, turned around, and exchanged gangtai with Wu. Since then, the marriage of the two children has been decided, and Lu Shenke has a lot of worries. It was windy when I walked, and I was much more diligent even when I went to the shop to see Lu Xiaobao. Lu Xiaobao also liked him. When he saw him from a distance, he happily jumped on his little legs and reached out to him. Just when Su Qingyu felt that the days were quiet and the summer breeze was warm, Su Shayan hurried over one evening. "Madam, she has a tender heart." Author, Bha 11u. Chapter 114. Su Shayan has been in a dusty road all the way, and he is no longer as noble as he used to be. Read. It was already dusk, and Su Qingyu was hurriedly called over by the shopkeeper of Jixiang pastry shop, and she saw Su Shayan like this. His face was covered with dust and frost, and he was leaning on a high-backed chair with his head in one hand and his eyes closed to meditate. "You came. Ah. Here we come. Sit." Su Qingyu sat down and looked at him. "What happened? You're in such a hurry?" Seeing his serious look, his brows furrowed slightly, and he felt nervous, fearing that something might really happen to him. Su Shayan rubbed his forehead. The salt tax is heavy. I got the news and grabbed some. I was afraid that you would have no need for salt, so I transported 2 carts to your village. As for your daily use, I took advantage of this period before the news spread. Come here, stock up, and be prepared. Huh? The salt tax is heavy. Seeing Su Shayan nodded, Sukingyu's heart sank. She just paid a bunch of inexplicable taxes some time ago. All the autumn grain in the fields was confiscated, and she paid another summer tax. It was said that in order to strengthen the border defense, the additional tax was levied at an additional 200 cash per acre of land. The common people complained. Sukingyu held her nose and had sex. How long has it been since the salt tax was increased again? A lot more. A lot if you can, stock up as much as you can. Good. After saying a few more words, he stood up and said, then I'll go back. Well, I will stay in the town for 2 more days. If you need anything, come to me. Good. Sukingyu was worried as she walked on the street. It was sunset and many shops were closed. Although it was not completely dark yet, candlelight came from the scattered shops that were open, illuminating the path under Sukingyu's feet. Sukingyu hurried to the store. Without going into details, he just ordered everyone in the store, including Granny Zhou and Hongxiu, to go out and buy salt. And be sure to buy up everyone's monthly share. Several children also carried bags and went out to buy salt, and Yaya also carried them. Su's father and Sudahu were left behind again, and they talked about the increase in salt prices. The 2 of them looked calm, turned around, drove the ox cart to the backyard, and hurried to Pingchuan County. Sukingyu hurried to Lu Shenkei's grocery store again. Fortunately, Lu Shenkei is still there. The boy left, and he was about to close the door and go home, when he turned around and saw Sukingyu sneaking in. From the Bocheng family. It's so late. What happened? Dad, how much salt do you still have in the store? Salt. We don't have any salt in hand. Dad took some from the salt merchant. It's not much. It's just a small profit. You want it? Take whatever you want. Dad will buy some tomorrow. Seeing that he had a calm expression, Sukingneo probably didn't receive the message, so she quickly pulled him aside and whispered. After saying that, he added, Dad, you keep what you use at home, and I will share some of the leftovers. After Sukingyu saw him stunned, he said it again. Lu Shenkei's face was filled with disbelief. Qing Lao, this is no joke. Where did you get the news? Dad, don't worry about whether it's true or not. It won't spoil if you leave it at home anyway. After thinking about it, he turned around and looked around in the grocery store. Dad, give me some sugar. I'll mix the oil, soy, vinegar, and other things wanted too. After saying that, I found some utensils in the store and started packing myself. Lu Shenkei came to his senses and hurried over to help her load it. Sukingneo loaded a large truck and asked Lu Shenkei to transport it back to the store for her. Then he asked him to help move it to the cellar. As soon as he came up, Lu Shenkei was stunned when he saw the people in the store. Even Sukingyu's twin siblings came back with a big bag of salt. I was stunned when I saw Grandma Zhou's grandson running in with a big bag of salt. Then I heard Sukingliu say to Sukingjeo, I will hold Xiaobeo and buy it again. He saw Sukingliu hugging Xiaobeo and running out quickly. Lu Shenkei couldn't sit still now. Qing Lao, this. Unexpectedly, Sukingyu didn't comfort him at all, and asked him, Dad, do you want to go to Pingchuan County to buy some goods? And buy some salt from the salt merchant? Lu Shenkei looked at her blankly, and seeing her extremely serious look, he said blankly, then, let's go back and set up the car. Dajian, please follow me. Sukingyu turned around and ordered Zhou Dajian. Zhou Dajiang immediately supported the stunned Lu Shenkei and strode away. Qing Lao, Do you think we should stock up on some food? Grandma Jo was terrified all night. The old man was here, and the price of salt had not been adjusted before. When it was high, a pound of salt could be worth 100 pounds of grain, and there was nowhere to buy it. As a result, everyone ate light food with the door closed, leaving no taste in their mouths. Grandma Jo's heart was pounding. Before Sukingyu could say anything, she patted her thigh and called to her grandson, "Red Shirt, go home quickly and get the rice bag." Sukingneo came to her senses and hurriedly asked Zhou Hongshan and Qingyang to go down to the cellar and bring up many rice bags and baskets. After closing the shop, he took everyone to the grain shop with rice bags and soon brought back a pile of rice, flour, and miscellaneous grains. The next day, before dawn, Sukingneo hired several ox carts and went to the countryside to load the vegetables and transport them back. At noon, Su's father and Sudahu drove their own ox carts back, followed by 2 hired carts. Avoiding people, he rushed to the backyard of the shop and moved things into the cellar. In the middle of the afternoon, Lu Shenke also returned, followed by 3 bullock carts. Lu Shenke didn't come back all night. When he came back, Wu knew that he had spent most of his money, so she jumped up and pointed at his nose and scolded him for a long time. A son and a daughter were about to get married. They bought so many goods with money. If they couldn't sell them, where would the money come from to buy their weddings? Lv Shenke did not explain. He was also confused. Fortunately, the things he bought were all storable, and even if the year was good, they would not depreciate too much. Then Lv Shenke went to the town 3 times a day, and the rice, flour, grain, and oil store was especially frequent. He also went to the place where salt was sold 3 times a day. And Sukingmei went to the auspicious shop to meet Su Shayan twice, and they talked for a long time each time. After Su Shayan left, she went to the farm again. She ordered all the finished goods not to be moved, and to be sealed in the cellar after they were made, and not to be moved rashly until she ordered. Lu Zhuangtu responded respectfully. Sukingmei also reminded Lu Zhuangtu implicitly to let the farm servants and tenants store some salt. Lu Zhuangtu was shocked, and as soon as Sukingmei left, he hurriedly sent everyone in the village to Pingchuan County to buy salt, and the tenants also said it implicitly. Some people bought and stored at home obediently, and some did not listen. After the Su family in Kyoto village and the Lu family in Shanghe village also stockpiled some salt, Sukingmei also stockpiled some more and transported some grain from the farm back. After a few days, the price of salt in Fengting town quietly rose from 20 wen per caddy to 25 wen, and then quickly rose to 30 wen, 50 wen, and 100 wen. Originally, 1 caddy of salt could be exchanged for 4 caddies of grain, but now 1 caddy of salt can be exchanged for 20 caddies of grain. The price rose rapidly. The streets were full of people queuing up to buy salt. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha 11U. Chapter 115. Su Qing'an went to Fengting town 2 or 3 times a day. Every time she went out, she would see a long queue of people buying salt. Gradually, the salt shop began to limit the quantity. Some people came from far away to buy salt, dragging their children and daughters, and as soon as it was their turn, they were told that there was no salt. Suddenly, it was as if the sky had fallen, and they sat on the ground and cried. The crying was so shrill that it was unbearable to hear. Some people were smart and turned around and rushed to various grocery stores and food stores to buy various sauces, pickles, pickled vegetables, salted fish, etc. In Su Qing'an's store, all the pickles were snapped up. Others were smart and stopped staring at the price of salt and started buying grain from the grain store. As a result, the grain price in the grain store also rose quietly. The same was true for the cloth shop, and some people began to hoard cloth. In addition to silver and grain, taxes can also be paid in cotton, linen, silk, and other cloth. Qian's cloth shop welcomed the largest flow of customers. Every day he smiled and collected money until his hands were soft. But after the shopkeeper's wife realized what was happening, she also raised the price to a certain extent, and was scolded by people. She was not afraid, and stood in the shop with her hands on her waist and scolded people. The people in the town watched a lot of excitement. The whole town had a kind of stormy atmosphere, which made people panic. Xiao Qingyang, who had been in a private school for a year, was very confused about all this. She sat on the steps in front of the shop with Xiao Qingxing, who had no one to teach her since Ma's wife left, and looked at the chaos on the street and muttered. In the evening, the sisters returned to the yard. It was hot in summer, and several people were cooling off in the yard. Xiao Qingxing looked up and asked, "Sister, is salt rare? Why is it more expensive than grain?" Su Qing'an saw that the brother and sister were looking at her with burning eyes, smiled and said, "Yes. Salt is more rare than grain. Grain can be produced in every place. If you can't produce rice, you can grow wheat. If you can't grow wheat, you can grow sorghum, millet, and soybeans. There is always a way to find food. But salt is not produced in every place. Moreover, the salt-making technology is not mature, the output is small, and the transportation is inconvenient. It is not easy to transport it here, so it is sold at a high price." The brother and sister were thoughtful. After thinking about it, Xiao Qingyang asked again, "Why did 1 caddy of salt exchange for 4 caddies of grain before, but the price of salt has risen so much now? Is salt becoming less?" I know. Is it because things are rare that they are expensive?" Xiao Qingxing said loudly. Su Qingliu and Su Qing'an both laughed. Since Ma Xiniang left, no one taught this child to read, so she followed Xiao Qingyang to learn. Every time Xiao Qingyang came back from the private school, he would teach her to recognize characters and recite articles. The little thing can now stumble and read some simple books, and occasionally speak 1 or 2 idioms. Su Qingmei said, "No, it's because the salt tax is heavy that the price of salt has risen." "Does salt also have to be taxed?" "Yes. We live in this country, and in order to maintain the operation of the country has to collect various taxes. Not only salt is taxed, but also vinegar, paper, and sauce. Sister also has to pay business taxes when she opens a store, and the fields at home also have to pay taxes. We also have to pay grain taxes when we collect grain." "I know. There are also household taxes and ding taxes." The little brother and sister are deeply impressed by these 2 taxes. Because of the household tax, their 2 sisters paid household taxes because of the separation of households some time ago, and Xiao Qingyang and Lu Xiaobao also paid ding taxes. It made Xiao Qingyang doubt his life once, and he thought he had become an adult. "Sister, why are there so few people selling salt? If more shops were opened, wouldn't salt be sold everywhere? There wouldn't be so many people queuing up these days." The twins often see people who come from far away to buy salt but can't get it and cry on the ground, and they feel sad. The 2 little ones are exposed to this side of society for the first time. Before, they couldn't eat enough, and they just wanted to be full. Now that they can eat enough, they never thought that there would be people crying and rushing to buy salt. Su Qingmei explained to the twins, because salt is almost always sold by the government, only a small number of merchants with salt permits can sell salt. Merchants without salt permits cannot get salt. Those who sell salt privately will be arrested by the government. Since ancient times, salt tax has been an important tax in all dynasties. Sometimes salt tax accounts for more than half of the tax revenue. It is an important source of treasury revenue. Therefore, all dynasties strictly control the entry and exit of salt. Salt is transported and sold by the government. After the Song dynasty, salt merchants were allowed to sell salt. The court issued salt permits to salt merchants. With salt permits, salt merchants can trade salt. But the salt trade was too profitable, and the salt merchants with salt permits were rich, and the court would strictly control the quantity and price of salt. And it was not easy to register the population in this era. Many mountain people, refugees, and black households could not be registered, so these people did not pay taxes. But they would not stop eating salt, so salt taxes were added. In this way, it was equivalent to that all the people in the world paid taxes. And paying salt taxes was much easier than paying other taxes, and there would be no evasion. As long as you are a person, you have to eat salt. Therefore, the sale of salt has always been strictly controlled. But because it is a highly profitable industry, many people take risks and sell private salt, and they can't stop despite repeated bans. Sukingmei used simple and easy to understand language to tell the twins about the importance of salt and salt taxes. The two little things immediately understood, and they were very glad that they bought salt and stored it earlier, and now the family is not short of salt. Otherwise, the family would be poor just by buying salt. Sukingmei saw the two little things patting their chests with a look of relief, and smiled. The salt tax has increased, and the agricultural tax has also increased. These two taxes have always been important sources of tax revenue for the imperial court. Suddenly increasing these two major taxes can only mean that the treasury has no money. Now the county has collected a bunch of miscellaneous taxes. I don't know whose pockets are filled. At that time, farmers will not be able to collect enough grain to pay taxes. Who will work hard to cultivate the land? At that time, public dissatisfaction will spread and farmers will resist. Sukingyu shivered in shock and did not dare to think any further. She suddenly felt confused. Fengting town is not in the hinterland of the Central Plains, and it is far away from the capital. I originally thought that the weather would be smooth and the years would be quiet, and I could just live a small life with peace of mind. But now the price of salt has increased several times, and the price of food has also quietly increased. Sukingyu suddenly panicked. Lying on the bed at night, she looked at Lu Xiaobao, who was sleeping soundly next to her. He looked so cute, with his two little hands holding fists and placing them on both sides of his little head. I just learned to roll over, I can't even crawl, my teeth haven't even grown yet, they're just a little bit bigger. In this era of lack of medical care and medicine, no one knows whether he can grow up peacefully. Sukingyu looked at her son silently for a long time, always feeling that she should do something. Suddenly, he remembered that he still had a useless golden finger, and quickly called it out. Only Sukingyu could see the contents of this golden finger. At that time, Lu Bachan was going to the front line, and Sukingyu ordered some medicines. Unexpectedly, the guy couldn't see it. After that she rarely used it anymore. This time I thought about it and quickly ordered a bottle of milk powder and a set of milk bottles. After waiting for a long time, I received it. I got busy and made a bottle to wake up Lu Xiaobao. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha 11u. Chapter 116. Lu Xiaobao was woken up by his own mother in a daze. He didn't even open his eyes. He only twisted his little body and waved his little fleshy hand in the air with a little temper. Read. Now Xiaobao rarely wakes up at night. She wakes up once at most, and then sleeps until dawn after feeding. It's not like eating once every hour before. Sukingyu was eager to know if the golden finger would be useful for Lu Xiaobao, so she drank a can of milk powder and shook him awake. Seeing that he was making some movement, I quickly put the pacifier to his mouth, clutching my heart, and watched without blinking. Seeing Lu Xiaobao's lips touching the pacifier, he closed his eyes and turned his head to the side. Sukingyu's heart clenched. Did you see this? I don't feel the existence of anything. Unwilling to give in, he put the pacifier into his mouth again. This time the little thing opened its mouth and took the pacifier in. He even hit the bar a few times unconsciously. Sukingyu hurriedly lifted the bottle, her eyes fixed on Lu Xiaobao, watching him suck unconsciously with his eyes closed, and then stiffly turned his head to look at the bottle. Seeing the milk in the bottle falling little by little, Sukingyu cried excitedly. This golden finger is useful to her son. Her son can feel it and enjoy what's inside the golden finger just like she does. She complained countless times about this useless system. She couldn't get rich by relying on golden fingers. It was so useless. Why give her the system? The doors were closed and the window was open as if it were not open. What's the use? Could it be that he just sent her here by mistake as compensation to ensure that she doesn't starve to death and that she gets medicine when she is sick? But now it seems that she gave birth to him to ensure that he would not be hungry and to ensure that he would get medicine when he was sick. Sukingneo bowed gratefully on the bed. That's enough, that's it. In the past, I felt that if a person came naked, he would go naked again in the future, and he would have nothing to worry about. Now that I have an extra little life because of her, it is enough to prevent him from going hungry or getting sick without any cure, and I don't feel much guilt anymore. Sukingyu's panic eased a lot. Unknowingly, Lu Xiaobao had finished feeding a whole bottle of milk. Lu Xiaobao didn't have enough and actually finished a bottle of milk. I don't know if I can survive the food. Sukingyu was a little panicked and wanted to shake him up. Unexpectedly, the little thing fell into a deep sleep after eating and could not wake up no matter how hard he shook. Sukingyu had no choice but to let him go. I watched him blankly all night and felt relieved when I saw that he didn't vomit milk or act strange. At dawn, I changed his diaper 3 times. I was so busy that I didn't sleep all night. At dawn, Lu Xiaobao woke up regularly at the usual time and called Sukingyu with babbling sounds. Sukingyu looked sleepy and told Xiao Qingxin to carry him out, then fell on the bed to catch up on her sleep. In the next few days, Sukingneo tried a few more times. After confirming that Lu Xiaobao could really see and use things in the system, Sukingneo felt relieved. The chaotic heart calmed down. Nowadays, there are still long queues of people coming to buy salt on the street every day. After the price of salt rose, Sukingneo stopped making pickles and selling kimchi in the store. Most people's families have also started to live a life of less salt and light food. A large family often cannot use a little salt in one meal. In the past, Sukingneo would often buy some coarse salt to make salt-baked chicken for everyone, and would also make it and sell it in the store. I haven't done that since the price of salt went up. Grandma Jo was cooking in the shop, and she didn't even want to add salt, so the soup was no different from plain water. Xiao Qingxin often scolded Granny Jo, saying that the soup was just like plain water and tasteless. Grandma Jo told her sincerely that in the past, some families could not afford salt. The whole family could not eat salt for half a month and a month. Their whole body was sore and weak, and they could not walk without nausea, so the whole family had to lie in bed together. Xiao Qingxin was so frightened when she heard this. I no longer dare to dislike the lack of salt in food. A little less salt is better than no salt at all. Every day the 2 siblings would run outside and watch secretly. I see people queuing up in front of the salt shop every day before dawn. Sometimes when I see children like them who are so pitiful, I will quietly give them a small paper bag of salt. Sukingleo originally wanted to stop them, but Sukingneo saw that they knew how to behave, so she didn't say much and just reminded them. Moreover, the daily amount of salt in the kitchen is limited, and most of it is hidden in the cellar. The amount of salt in the kitchen is only enough for 2 or 3 days. They couldn't take much, so they didn't pay much attention. Business in Suqing's store is good. Fruits and vegetables are abundant in summer, so it's easy to harvest them. Su's father and Sudehu could pick up several cars every day. Sukingnao was afraid of rising food prices, so she continued to harvest fruits and vegetables as usual, but the dried vegetables and fruits she produced were no longer sold out. Su Shayan was also waiting and watching, and no one was sent to collect the dried fruits and vegetables. This was something the two of them had agreed upon before. Sometimes Su Shayan would send someone to tell her about outside news, and Lu Juyi would occasionally come over to see Xiaobao and say a few words to her. He said it was a mess outside and asked her to stay in the town with her children and not run around. In early August, Lu Yuzhi got married. Because the situation in the town was not very good recently, Lu Shenke had no big plans. We only invited some good friends in the town, plus the people from Su Qingyu's natal family, and all the relatives of the old Lu family. Of course, the main reason is that Lu Shenke has stocked up a lot of goods at home and in the store, and is short of money. In addition, Lu Bozu will also get married in a month. The wedding of the scholar's son must be a grand event, otherwise the Sun family in Pingchuan County nor did he agree. As a result, there was almost no ostentation that Lu Yuzhi wanted. It made her feel angry. Su Qingyu went to help her early in the morning and put on her makeup, but she still had a straight face. As the eldest sister-in-law, Su Qingyan's makeup couldn't be too bad, so she gave her a pair of gold bracelets. It was also a little thought from the eldest brother and sister-in-law. Moreover, Lu Shenke loved his grandson Lu Xiaobao very much. Even though Su Qingyan knew that Lu Yuzhi didn't care about her as the eldest sister-in-law, she still gave Lu Shenke enough face. Wu was satisfied with the makeup gift given by Su Qingyan. Seeing that Lu Yuzhi didn't say anything, she scolded her. Su Qingyan didn't care, put on her makeup and went out. Seeing that Lu Baxiao's wife Huang also brought her son to the wedding, she happily took Xiaobao over. The two little brats stared at each other with big eyes and looked at each other in surprise. Wang's son Lu Weji was a few months older than Xiaobao and had grown several teeth. Seeing Xiaobao's white and chubby appearance, he reached out to pull him in a friendly way. Xiaobao was unhappy and slapped him with his hand, hitting his hand down. The child just pursed his lips and reached out to pull Xiaobao. Seeing Su Qingyan glaring at him and seeing that Lu Weji looked harmless, Xiaobao finally reached out to him. The two brothers happily babbled incomprehensible words. They amused everyone in the old Lu family. Old Lu and Grandma Lu were the happiest. The two little great-grandchildren were so cute, right in front of them. The old people liked the prosperous family and the harmonious appearance of children and grandchildren around their knees. Wei Yang is really well raised. He is white and fat. Look at Wei Ji, he is dark and thin. He is a few months older than Wei Yang, but when the two brothers stand together, Wei Yang looks older than him. Huang looked at the two boys held in the arms of old Lu and Grandma Lu, and asked Su Qingyan how she raised the children. Seeing that she didn't have any sour words, Su Qingyan gave little Wei Ji a pair of small silver bracelets, talked to her for a while, and said, Yang Yang eats a lot, no matter how much you give him. When he was little, he ate once an hour, but now he eats once every hour and a half, and eats many meals a day. You eat so much, do you still drink milk? Su Qingyan nodded, yes. I still eat. Children who drink milk are white and fat, and grow fast. Really? After Wei Ji grew teeth, I didn't let him drink milk, and my milk was not enough for him. Su Qingyan thought for a while and said, then see if you have goat's milk or cow's milk, feed him some. Ah, cow's milk or goat's milk. Can he eat it? Yes. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 117. On August 15, there was rare peace and quiet on the streets of Fengting town. The queues that usually line up late at night to buy salt have disappeared and are in good order. Lanterns were hung above the doors of some shops. No matter how difficult times are, festivals must be appropriate to the occasion. The twins made an appointment with Xiekio, and the three of them made an appointment to watch the lights and scenery on the street. They ran and jumped. Even if the sky fell, the taller one would hold up. The child was the most carefree. Qingyang Qingxing returned to Kyoto village on August 14 after just one night. She was urged to the town by Mrs. Wang and Zheng early in the morning. In the past, I saw the two boys from Dafang living a good life in the town, Xiao Qingyang still studying, and the rich man still digging soil at home and playing with the wild children in the village as officers and soldiers to catch robbers. Zheng and Wang started to fight against each other. Mother Su said a lot of sarcastic words. If nothing happened, he urged Su's father to bring the two of them back. Salt is now more expensive, and food is also more expensive. Mrs. Wang and Mrs. Zheng have never said such words again, and they all wish that Su's father and Mother Su would not stay at home. Later, Father Su just brought back some salt and food every time he came back. After the excitement of August 15, more than half a month later, Lu Bozu also got married. Su Qingyu also carried Lu Xiaobao back to help. This time the battle was much bigger than Lu Yizhu's. The banquet was so large that even Lu Zai couldn't sit down, and the banquet was placed outside the house, in the alley, and on the street. The food and wine at the banquet were not comparable to those on Lu Yizhu's wedding day. 69 Shu. He has been looking forward to changing his family background for many years. Ever since he sent his three sons to school, he has been looking forward to changing his family background. None of his three sons made him stand tall. Now the second son just got married and was taught by a gentleman from the Yu family school, so he came back as a scholar, making everyone in the town look high on him. Lu Shenke helped the Sun family to give their daughter-in-law a lot of face and pomp. Huang said that Lu Bozu's wedding ceremony was grander than that between Lu Bachan and her. Su Qingyu heard it and didn't care. After Mrs. Huang returned last month, she found a dairy goat as Su Qingyu said and squeezed the goat's milk to feed Lu Wuji. Within a month, little Wuji became fatter and more lovable. Huang was extremely happy. She felt that Su Qingneo was just like her. The child's father had been drafted into the army and was on the front line. He was still alive and dead, so he felt a natural closeness to Su Qingneo. Last month, I got the silver bracelet and fabric that Su Qingyu gave to Xiao Wuji, and I felt that Su Qingyu was a good person. Seeing that Lu Bozu's second son had only passed the examination as a scholar, and the wedding ceremony was much more grand than that of the eldest son, some felt aggrieved for Su Qingyu. Su Qingyu didn't take it to heart at all. She hugged Xiaobao and played with Xiao Wuji. The two of them looked at the child and talked. After the Sun family's new daughter-in-law came in, she and Mrs. Huang also went to see her. She was not bad-looking, but she was very cold and seemed not to be approached. Su Qingyu didn't say much, and came out with the child in her arms. She is not as good-looking as you, and she also looks aloof. The families in this county are just different from us. Who told us that we were married from the village? Mrs. Huang also went to see the bride. The matchmaker introduced Su Qingyu and Mrs. Huang to the bride, but she sat still and only nodded lightly, which made Mrs. Huang very dissatisfied. This was not a newlywed's relationship with her husband. My sister-in-law's attitude. It's okay. We don't live with her. We only see each other every year and festival. After they get married, I heard that they will move to the county. Maybe we won't see her once a year. You and her are born what anger? Su Qingyu comforted him. Seeing that Lu Xiaobao was grabbing something belonging to Xiao Wuji again, he quickly shouted, Xiaobao. Huang hurriedly looked over with her. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 118. LV Xiaobao, the little bully, is in a bad mood again. Read. Su Qingmei bought him a rattle before, and he likes it very much. As soon as he wakes up, he grabs it in his hand and refuses to let it go. He shakes it by himself and plays with it. There are several children playing on the sheepskin drum, and both sides are different pictures of children playing. Maybe children like to look at children's pictures, and Lvziobeo likes to stare at the patterns on the drum. When shaking, his eyes are also fixed on the two bullets. The two bullets hit the drum surface and make a dong-dong sound. He always stares at them without blinking, as if he is studying the source of the sound. He has pulled off the two bullets many times, and when he pulled them off, he always looks at Su Qingmei with a puzzled look. Su Qingmei put the two bullets back, and he pulled them off again. When he couldn't shake it, he went to Su Qingmei again, and she put them back, and he pulled them off again. Su Qingmei got angry, and she hit his little hand hard, and he stopped pulling. This time, when LV Bozi got married, he brought him over. Su Qing'an saw that little Wei Ji was staring at his rattle, so she gave the rattle to little Wei Ji to play with. At first, Lvziobeo was not paying attention to it, but to the drums and music in the yard. Su Qing'an thought he didn't care, so she took the rattle from him and gave it to little Wei Ji to play with. Unexpectedly, after talking to Huang for a few words, she turned around and saw that he had snatched little Wei Ji's rattle. Not only did he snatch it, but he also hit little Wei Ji with the rattle. Su Qing'an got angry and scolded him. The child got angry. He didn't cry, but turned his head to find someone he was familiar with. When he saw Su Qingliu, he reached out to her. After being held by Su Qingliu, he lay on her neck and ignored Su Qing'an. Su Qing'an was angry. He ignored him too. He held little Wei Ji and planned to buy a new one for little Wei Ji. He just took a few steps and heard him crying loudly. The crying was so loud that it attracted Lu Shenke, who was busy entertaining guests. At night, after Su Qingmei coaxed him to sleep, he looked like a little angel. Thinking of his little bully appearance during the day, she had a headache again. She grabbed his little hand and gently patted the back of his fleshy hand. I don't know who he resembles with this little temper. Seeing him twist his body, Su Qingmei didn't dare to move, for fear of waking him up. If this guy howled in the middle of the night, he could wake up the people on the street. At that time, the chickens and dogs would bark, which would be a headache. What a troublesome little thing. I covered him with a quilt and lay down beside him carefully. After a while, I fell asleep. After a few days, the autumn harvest arrived. This year, Fengting town was blessed by God. The weather was good and there was no drought or flood. If it weren't for the many miscellaneous taxes collected this year, the farmers' lives would be very good. The private school had a busy farming holiday, and Su Qing'an also gave Zhou Dejiang a few days off to go home and help. He was the only one who had to go home to help with the autumn harvest. The others, Su Qingliu, Su Dehu, and Grandma Zhou, were all landless. Su Dehu's family had a few acres of land, but he was busy with Su Qing'an's shop, so he rented out the acres of land to the villagers. Grandma Zhou's family had no land. And Su Qingliu rarely returned to the village since Kui Mangzhong died. But he still often sent money and things back to the old couple of the Kui family. The old couple of the Kui family would occasionally come to see Yaya and bring some local products to them. Last time their family came to the town to line up to buy salt, Su Qing'an also asked Su Qing'an to give them some. It was enough for them to eat for a while. Because the price of salt has been high. The price of grain has also increased slightly. Even if Guangning Prefecture is not short of grain, the price of grain is still higher than in previous years. After paying the autumn tax, Su Qing'an didn't sell the autumn grain from the fields under her name. Instead, she transported all of it to the farm and hid it. Su's father in Kyoto village also told old Su not to sell the grain. Lu Shenke also told old man Lu and his men. Suqingyan took advantage of the autumn harvest during this period and secretly bought a lot of it. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Jiaoye 11u. Chapter 119. Autumn grain is put into the warehouse, and farmers have a little more smile on their faces. There are more people on the streets of Fengting town. People in twos and threes are strolling leisurely. Many people visit the small restaurants and taverns in the morning and evening. After Zhou Dejiang came back, everything became dark. Occasionally, I would go to the countryside with Su's father and Sudahu to collect fruits, vegetables, and poultry. When I was not busy, I would stay in the backyard. Su Qingyu didn't pay attention at first. The front store was not busy, and everyone was helping with the work in the backyard. I saw him working with Hongxiu several times and didn't mind. But later, when she saw him secretly stuffing things into Hongxiu twice, Su Qingyu began to pay attention. Ever since Hongxiu came to help Su Qingyu's shop, she rarely took on outside sewing work. Even her 8-year-old brother Hongshan Su Qingneo was given small jobs to do, and her mother-in-law and grandson were all busy working in Su Qingneo's shop. At first, Su Qingneo saw that Hongxiu was very agile and a nice person, so she planned to get along with Sudahu, but she didn't expect Sudahu to be unwilling. Su Qingyu felt guilty all the time and thought about helping her arrange a marriage. Aunt Zhou, Granny Zhou, and her family helped her a lot. Just this big ginger and red sleeves. Are these two people getting a little close? Su Qingyu had this matter in her mind, so she quietly paid attention to it. Unexpectedly, she actually got the clue. When did these two get along? I hurriedly found Su Qingliu, Granny Zhou, and others to ask. Unexpectedly, everyone had already seen it, and only Su Qingyu realized it later. Granny Zhou also came to Su Qingjao. I thought you knew. I know. Everyone knows about it, but she doesn't. When Granny Zhou saw her look like that, she knew she hadn't noticed. He smiled and said, "De Zhang, he is a good young man. Ever since I came to work in your shop, he has been right under my nose. I can see how he behaves. I always thought Dehu was good, but I didn't expect him. He has no connection with my family. This big ginger is not bad. He is honest and sensible. When he first came to the store, he was embarrassed when the women made fun of him, but now he can stand alone." Mother-in-law Zhou seemed to be very satisfied with Zhou Dejiang, so she allowed her only granddaughter to associate with Zhou Dejiang. She kept silent for these days, presumably to test Dejiang's behavior. But, how did these two fall in love? It's not like we've known each other for a day or two, so how did we get to know each other? Su Qingliu explained her doubts, probably after the list of dead was released. Brother De Zhang is gone, and Hongxiu's father is gone too. The two of them would hide in the backyard and cry, and then comfort each other. Now they have come together. Get up. It's fate, we all know it. Our aunt and uncle are the most honest people. Grandma Zhou and her family have been close to us for more than a year. We also know what kind of person they are. Last time, my aunt asked us to help find a match for Dejiang. No, we didn't even need to help him look at it, he just took a liking to it himself. Su Qingneo thought about it carefully and felt that it would be good for the two families to form one family. Hongxiu and De Zhang are the same age, both have the surname Zhou, and are both 16 years old this year. In this era, it is indeed possible to talk about marriage. Both of them have simple families. Mother-in-law Zhou and Aunt Zhou have lost the mainstay of their family. The only male, Hongxi, is only 8 years old. At my aunt's house, my uncle's leg was broken before, but it has been cured now and does not affect his walking. Su Qingyu has paid back more than half of the money he borrowed before. The big boy is gone, but there is still a big ginger. It's just that the eldest cousin left a 5-year-old nephew Zhou Jinhai for him. I am afraid that he will become De Jiang's responsibility. But my aunt and uncle are still young and strong, so it shouldn't be difficult for them to live to have a family and start a business. Ever since Sukhinjao saw through the affair between the two of them simply stopped hiding things and became more open-minded. Soon my aunt and uncle's family came to town. Discuss their marriage with Granny Jo and her family. The situation is not good now, and there are rumors that there will be another conscription, and the people in the town are panicked. Children who have reached marriageable age no longer need to be delayed, and they can marry as soon as possible if a suitable person comes. Su Sai Quan has already said that he will be married a year ago. Soon the two families agreed on the marriage, and planned to get married before the year. Both families are simple people who know their roots well. They have no requirements for dowry or bride price, they just want their children to live well. My aunt and uncle are very satisfied with their mother-in-law, Aunt Jo. Mother-in-law and Aunt Jo are also very satisfied with my aunt's family, who are generally open-minded. This mother-in-law is not someone who would bully her daughter-in-law at all. The two families lived happily as if they were one family. Aunt Jo also invited her aunt's family, Sukhinyu, and others to her home and cooked a lot of her specialty dishes for everyone to eat. Everyone enjoyed the meal very much. After Zhou Daijiang's marriage was settled, Sukhinyu discovered that the child seemed to have transformed overnight. The childish look on his face has gone, and he has taken on the responsibility of a man, like the backbone of the family. Now both families are his responsibility. As the backbone of both families, he has grown a lot overnight. Sukhinyu was very pleased and arranged many things for him to experience. The autumn wind is blowing, and the mood of autumn is getting stronger. Sukhinjao gradually discovered that there were some new faces on the street. As the saying goes, customs are different within 10 miles, customs are different within 100 miles, and people from different regions will always have something different from the local people if you look closely. Sukhinjao has been in Fenting town for more than a year and is very familiar with it. People in and around Fenting town can always see some clues. It seemed like there were many outsiders on the street overnight. Not to mention this, Sukhinyu found that the price of salt had risen again, from the initial 20 fen to 100 fen. Later, she stocked up a lot. It was the mid-autumn festival, Lu Bozu was getting married, and she was busy with the autumn harvest, so she stopped paying attention to the price of salt. Unexpectedly, it will almost reach 160 yuan now. Food prices have also risen. Hulled rice costs 5 cents per caddy, but now it sells for 10 cents. Even the chaff has risen. This is how long the autumn harvest is. Fenting town is not short of food. This year's autumn harvest, most people paid the autumn tax, but not much was sold. Seeing that the price of grain had risen before, everyone was hoarding it but not selling it. Why is this price increase happening? Sukhinyu was walking on the street and saw many new faces lining up in front of the grain shop to buy grain every day. There was also a long queue at the door of the salt shop. There were long boards with salt prices written on them. The prices were different every day. She heard people sitting on the ground and wailing every day when she passed by. Business is booming on the street, and any vacant house, even a woodshed, is rented out at a high price. Sukhinjao heard that the haunted house not far from the town had not been sold or rented for several years, and now someone was snatching it away at a high price. Li Yaran, who rented a shop to Sukhinyu before, came to ask Sukhinyu if he wanted to rent out the empty room in the shop to earn more rent. Was rejected by Sukhinyu. But I took Li Yaran to understand some situations. Only then did I know that Fenting town has been flooded with many foreigners recently, all of whom brought their families with them. Most of this group of people came with their luggage and their families. They had property, could afford a house, rent a place to live, and had money to buy food. Sukhinjao paid attention. However, just a few days after asking for information from the Liya people, the second group of foreigners came again. The people who came this time were much more miserable than the previous batch. The arrival of this group of people also broke the peace in the town. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Ba Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 120. In front of various businesses in Fenting Town, as long as they open the door every day, many people will be there, begging for money from customers. There are even more people in small restaurants and bars. There are many people in front of Suqing's shop every morning, noon, and evening. There were originally 4 vegetable shops in the town, but one of them was later closed. This time, due to the fluctuation in salt and food prices, another one was closed. Only Suqingyu and Suergu's shops were still open. Suqingneo didn't know whether second Aunt Su was making money or not, but she had been trying to get away from Suqingneo, so she might be able to hold on for a while longer. There were usually no leftovers in Suqing's shop, so she dealt with all the ones that were not sold out that day. But since there were people begging at the door, Suqingliu, Granny Zhou and others saw how pitiful they were, so they would give their daily leftovers to the people begging at the door. But later, when more and more people came, everyone stopped thinking. The constant influx of foreigners has seriously affected the lives of the people in Fenting Town. The merchants were unable to drive away or beat the beggars at their door. Many people felt sorry for them and couldn't do anything, so they just let them squat at the door. It's just that as a result, customers don't dare to go to the store to do business. All businesses are suffering. The salt shop was only open for half a day. Even so, there is still a long queue at the door of the salt shop, and even if it is closed, the queue of people still does not leave. There are people lining up even before dawn. The prices of grains in grain stores are also rising quietly, but not as horribly as the price of salt. Because the residents of Fenting Town have most of their autumn food in their hands, there is no chance of them queuing up to buy food. When Su Shayan came, Suqingneo told him about the changes in Fenting Town these days, and she couldn't help but feel sad and confused. Their town has neither drought nor floods. In addition to the heavier taxes, the fields have a good harvest of both summer and autumn crops. This influx of many down and out foreigners can only be attributed to the lack of food in other places. Suqingjao misses the era of information explosion very much. Not only in China, but also in the other side of the world, news spread everywhere as soon as it happened. But here, with inconvenient transportation and limited information, she didn't know the origin and couldn't make a judgment. Su Shayan traveled for many days and arrived at Fenting Town. He thought that Fenting Town was peaceful, but he didn't expect that it was not peaceful either. The eyebrows were lightly furrowed, and the beautiful fingers were rubbing the brows again and again, with a look as clear as jade. Suqingyu looked at it and smiled. "I remember you have a wife and children, right?" Su Shayan turned his head to look at him, still holding his forehead with his hand, and raised his eyebrows, looking confused. "You are very confusing outside." Suqingyu also raised her eyebrows at him. He also looked him up and down. Su Shayan glanced at himself and was about to ask her. When he realized it, he couldn't help but smile. "After taking a look at Suqingyu, I saw that the person in front of me was completely different from the first time I saw her. She was as beautiful and dignified as an orchid in an empty valley. How could she still look like the flat, dark, and thin country firewood girl she had when we first met? I've been walking all this way, and it's been a chaotic situation outside. I thought Fenting Town had a good time in the world, but I didn't expect that it wouldn't be peaceful either. Is there chaos outside?" Su Shayan nodded. "Well, it's very chaotic. Do you think there are many people at the door of the merchants in Fenting Town now? No, you will know when you look outside. Where there are temples, there are more people there." "Ah, you all go to the temple to beg?" "That's right. Rich families often give alms there. If you get alms, you should be able to survive." Su Shayan didn't look at her and shook his head. "No, it's the farmers who stuff their sons into the temple. They line up every day to beg the temple to take them in." "Ah. Why? Put your son in the temple instead of your daughter?" Don't want any male children either. Su Shayan smiled, which temple do you think wants women? Oh, two. But isn't there a nunnery? Can you let go of men? It's better to live than to die. The North has launched another military conscription. All the vassals have also responded. In these years of continuous war, the land in the North has been barren, the water conservancy is in disrepair, many places are depopulated, and thorns cover the wilderness. Taxes have also been increased, and the people cannot survive. Had no choice but to escape into Buddhism. Ah! Now Buddhism is developing rapidly and has enclosed a lot of land. I heard that the number of monks and nuns now reaches 50,000 or 60,000. Su Qingyu's head was buzzing. She remembered that there had been several incidents of exterminating Buddhas in history. On the one hand, the population has dropped sharply due to the war in recent years, and on the other hand, there are more and more Buddhist disciples who are not doing farming, which has seriously affected the national finance, taxation, and corvée collection, and the contradiction between national power and religious forces has increased. In history, there is a famous event in which the emperor initiated the extermination of Buddhism by the three martial arts section. Blood flowed into a river, and the blood left in front of the Buddhist gate could not be washed away even for half a month. Seeing that Su Qingyu was silent, Su Shayan turned to look at her. Seeing that her hands were still trembling, he asked with concern, "What's wrong with you? Are you feeling unwell?" Su Qingyu came back to her senses and shook her head, still in a daze. Su Shayan glanced at her again, confirmed that she was okay, and comforted, "Don't worry too much. Guangning Mansion is still peaceful now. There are many people coming from prefectures and counties, and there will always be some measures in place. The influx of people in Fengting town is currently under control." Su Qingyu hummed dumbly. After a long while, I asked him, "Not only the price of salt has gone up, but the price of food has also gone up. Is it because there is a bad harvest in the north?" Su Shayan frowned again. "Well, a locust plague occurred in Dingzhou, Huizhou, Kangzhou, Ezhou, and Yanzhou. The locusts passed through the border, and there were not even 1 out of 10 left. Now many northern disaster victims have poured in from all states and prefectures." Locust plague. Su Qingyu turned to look at him in surprise. Su Qingneo recalled that there was a time in history when locust plagues were most common. In the 289th year of the Tang dynasty, there were 42 locust plagues, with an average of 1 every 7 years. At the end of the Tang dynasty, various disasters came one after another, and the conflicts caused by various natural disasters also accelerated the demise of the Tang dynasty. When Su Qingyu first came here, she thought she had traveled to the Tang dynasty, but now she is living in the Shuo dynasty. This dynasty, which had never appeared in history, puzzled her. It doesn't work for her to pretend to be a dabbler with her historical knowledge. Fortunately, apart from the north, there are many places with high yields, otherwise it would be even more difficult. I am here this time to collect some grain and transport it to the north. I am also ready to transport the goods from your village. Now that the price of grain and salt has risen, the price will naturally also rise. You can't settle it based on the previous price. I won't let you suffer." Su Qingyu nodded. After working together so many times, she also trusted him. I am even more grateful to him for constantly sending him news from the outside during this period. I don't care too much about the price. He readily agreed to clear out all the goods in Zhuangzi's cellar. She didn't move the food. The situation is not good now. Food can save people's lives, but she doesn't want to touch it, and she has to find ways to collect more food and store it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bajia 11U. Chapter 121. Captain Lu, the general is looking for you. Outside the camp, the messenger raised his voice. Here we come, Lu Bachan responded, put down the book in his hand, got up and walked out of the camp. For more than a year, Lu Bachan made many military exploits because of his bravery, intelligence, courage to fight and not fear of death. He has been promoted from a low-level recruit to a military officer with official rank. It took more than half a year to jump from the 9th level to the 7th level, all the way up. Almost every general wanted to put him under his command. Lu Bachan later followed General Kui. General Kui was his boss. When he first saw him mumbling something, and asked him what he was chanting, he couldn't say he was reciting military instructions, and he only recited what his wife had said. Captain Kui didn't laugh at him either. He took care of him all the way. He looked after him everywhere and gave him opportunities to make meritorious deeds. He didn't despise his military merit. Whenever he got a trophy, he didn't withhold it and let him share it with his brothers. Now Captain Kui has been promoted to a general of the 4th rank, and he has also been promoted to a captain of the 7th rank. General. Enter. Lu Bachan opened the curtain of the tent and walked in. Lu Bachan walked in and saw that there were already people in the tent. Vice General Lu and 2 captains of the same rank as him were surrounding the sand table, both under General Kui's tent. Everyone has become familiar with each other after fighting together. As soon as Lu Bachan came in, everyone said hello. Bo Cheng, come on. General Kui raised his head from the sand table and called him over. Bo Cheng, come and take a look at the battle plan this time. We plan to let you 3 captains each lead a team to Yun, Pu, and Cao prefectures to attack from 3 sides and give the other side a severe blow. Lu Bachan already roughly knew about this mission. After the great victory in the southwest, the border crisis was resolved. I thought I could take a break, but I didn't expect that chaos broke out in the north again. Lu Bachan also knew about the locust plague in the north. He heard that the farmers could no longer survive, so they joined Buddhism one after another. The price of salt has soared, and ordinary people can no longer afford salt, so some people have taken risks and started selling private salt. Later, a city in the north was captured as a stronghold. No one paid attention to it at first. Unexpectedly, this private salt team grew bigger and bigger, and many people who could not survive joined in. Now this team has captured the 3 northern states and is approaching the capital. The Tianping army Jidushi could not attack for a long time, so he asked for help from Hezhong Jidushi and Suanwu army Jidushi, but the various vassal towns refused to send troops. The DPRK quickly issued a military order to the Southwest Army, which had just won a great victory in the southwest, asking them to break camp and quickly return for reinforcements. Lu Bachan frowned deeply after reading the sand table and hearing the battle arrangements. General, our army is too far away. Even if we march day and night, our troops and horses will be exhausted by then, which may be detrimental to the battle. Even if the Suanwu army Jidushi cannot send troops in the middle of the river, we can still send troops to Pinglu and Yuwu Jidushi. Why bother seeking help from the near side? Before General Kui spoke, Lieutenant General Lu spoke. Didn't your Dao dynasty send anyone to ask for help from them? It was just to support the troops and preserve their strength. The North said that they wanted to conquer Liao to preserve their strength, and the Northwest also said that they should guard against foreigners. It is not convenient to send troops for invasion. Now all the governors have heavy troops. They will not send troops. The Imperial Army has to defend the capital, and only we in the southwest can mobilize it. Lu Bachan felt very heavy. He doesn't understand politics, but over the past year or so, he has become somewhat influenced by it. Nowadays, the military, civilian, and financial administrations of each military governor are integrated into one body, and the military support is too heavy. The combined military strength of each military commander is several times that of the Central Imperial Army. Often refuse to listen to the central government's orders. Nowadays, the vassal towns are divided, and the northern salt dealers and peasant rebels are allowed to grow in size. They also proclaim themselves Sarang generals, and their troops are approaching the capital Chang'an. Lu Bachan has mixed feelings about the self-proclaimed great general. I heard that his family has been private salt dealers for generations, and the family is not short of money. He himself had a talent for poetry since he was a child. He failed to pass the test many times. When he heard that he was angry, he wrote a poem, which was widely circulated. Although Lu Bachan was always said to be a scumbag by his wife, it did not affect his appreciation of the poem written by that person. When autumn comes on the 8th day of the 9th lunar month, all the flowers will bloom and the flowers will bloom. Chang'an will be filled with incense and the whole city will be filled with golden armor. Is that why he calls himself the great general? In the past, Lu Bachan had invaded the border with foreigners. He fought bravely and mercilessly against the invading aliens. He could fight without sleep or rest and fight for blood. But what we have to face now are a group of ordinary people in Dashuo who can't survive. As long as the DPRK does something. Kui Shen knew what Lu Bachan was thinking at a glance. He sighed and patted Lu Bachan on the shoulder. Don't think too much. We are soldiers and generals of the imperial court. With the salary of the imperial court, we have to listen to the imperial court's orders. His mission is to be loyal to the court. A few words that spoke loudly. After Kui Sheng finished speaking, he looked at Lu Bachan with burning eyes. Lu Bachan met his eyes steadily, for a long time before he responded with a heavy voice and turned to look at the sand table on the table. After several people discussed the battle plan, Lu Bachan left General Kui's camp and walked to his own camp. Go Sheng stood straight in front of the camp, holding a long gun. The brothers who used to sleep in the same tent, now Lu Bachan has been promoted to a 7th-rank military officer due to his repeated military exploits, while Go Sheng has also become a 9th-rank military attaché and Lu Bachan's personal soldier. Lu Bachan also gave him a new name, Lu Changsheng. Seeing Lu Bachan enter the tent with a sullen face, Lu Changsheng also followed. Sir, do you want to get you some food? Lu Bachan shook his head and greeted him, Changsheng, sit down. Lu Changsheng touched his head and sat down on one side. Long victory, it sounds really nice. But I also like the name Guwa that my parents gave me. Guwa, the name is kind, and it sounds better than Go Sheng. After speaking, he glanced at Lu Bachan. Thank you, sir, for giving me a name. I also have a name. In 2 days, sir, when you are free, help me write a letter to my family. I want to tell them that I also have class now. I want to make my family happy. Lu Bachan was stunned. He had written countless letters to Sukingyu before, but he couldn't send them out. After many battles, the letter was not retained. It was either burned or lost in the rush to break camp. Even if I write it, I can never send it. Now that I have to break camp and return to the Central Plains, I should have a chance to send it out. Okay, then I will write to my family first today. I will call you after I finish writing, and then I will write another letter for you. Okay, thank you, sir. Then I will sharpen the ink for you. Good. Lu Bachan put away the things on the table, spread out the paper, picked up the pen, dipped it in ink, and suddenly paused. There are so many words to say, I don't know where to start. I think about my wife 100 times every night, and her beautiful image is all in my dreams, and her every smile seems to be in my ears. This suddenly needs to be turned into words, and suddenly I don't know what to write. What to write? Lu Bachan grabbed the pen in a daze, and a drop of ink fell on the yellow and white rice paper, and fainted. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 122. Su Qingnao successively asked Su's father and Sudahua to buy some grain when they went to the village, and also bought back some salt through Su Shayan. The price of salt is already ridiculously high. But you can't really avoid eating salt. During this period of time, everyone ate lightly, and Sukingyu sometimes wanted to scoop out the salt from the salt shaker. She didn't expect that one day salt would become so precious, and she was looking forward to eating it back. In the past, no one liked the salted eggs pickled in the store, but now they were looking forward to Sukingyu getting some oily salted eggs from the cellar to go with the rice. There were more and more people coming from the north in Fengting town, and they were becoming more and more depressed. At first, a few young people went out to watch the excitement, but then they almost got robbed, so they didn't dare to go out anymore. I hide in the store every day and dare not go out easily. Sukingyu, Granny Zhou, and others kept a close eye on the young ones and kept them under their noses easily. Nowadays, if an adult goes out with luggage, he will be stared at and robbed. Merchants in the town are afraid to open large stores. 3, 5, and 7 doors only open a small door for guests to enter and exit. Sukingyu urgently transferred a few servants from the village to go to the countryside with Su's father and Sudahu. More people were guarding the store at night, just in case, so she felt relieved. The weather is getting colder, and the people staying on the street in Fengting town can no longer bear the night wind and start knocking on the doors of residents at night. The people of Fengting town couldn't bear the disturbance. They had been waiting for so long, but no one from the county came to take care of these refugees. Everyone then recommended Lu Juyu's family and several other well-known families in the town to take charge of the affairs together. We found several unoccupied houses in the town, settled some people in them, and helped them find places to stay in nearby villages. All merchants and some residents in the town donated a sum of money to they put away autumn and winter clothes, and that was enough to take care of most of the people. There are a small number of people who are lazy and just want to eat what they get and are unwilling to accept arrangements. Everyone doesn't care about them. As long as they behave inappropriately in the town, almost everyone will shout and beat them. If they are knocked down, they will be frightened. Fengting town has finally regained some peace. During this time, Sukingyu began to look for Lu Juyu, and Su Shayan learned about things outside. I searched a lot of history books and county records, and began to pay more attention to the affairs of the DPRK and China. I heard that the current emperor is addicted to wine and sex, ignores government affairs, and favors eunuchs, which makes me feel nervous. Throughout the dynasties, as long as the eunuchs had exclusive power, it was almost always a sign before the country was destroyed. Sukingyu remembered that there was a king who thought that ministers who had families and descendants must take care of their families and refused to do their best in court affairs, so he used eunuchs more. I feel that they have nothing to worry about and feel at ease. So much so that when he was in power, there was a saying that if you want to be an official, you must first leave the palace. During his reign, the number of eunuchs once reached more than 20,000. In the end, he did not end well. He was attacked in front of the palace gate, but the eunuchs robbed him of gold and silver and ran away without him. While Sukingyu was feeling uneasy, Lu Bachan was marching to Yunzhou with his team day and night. Night and day, the carriages and horses kept moving, and the people and horses were exhausted. When we were still 2 days away from Yunzhou, we all breathed a sigh of relief from top to bottom. We were finally here. During this period, the journey was difficult, and everyone was holding back their anger, thinking of having a fight with the rebellious officials and traitors to relieve this depression. Lu Bachan was on the road for more than half a month, holding back a lot of energy in his heart. He thought of many battle plans in his mind, thinking about how to win this battle. My mind was churning with military books and various battle plans. How to fight a beautiful battle with the minimum casualties and the shortest combat time. After he made a detailed battle plan, unexpectedly, he heard an order from the front, asking him to rest on the spot and follow the arrangements of the supervisory army for the war. Lu Bachan was depressed. Originally, from the Southwest Army, there was a governor who came with a few supervisors under his command, gesticulating in the army and stirring up trouble. Not only were the merits and punishments of the officers and soldiers inspected, but the military achievements of the officers and soldiers were suppressed and not reported, and the officers were even asked to beg them before they were willing to write memorials. All the generals dared to be angry but dared not speak out against them. Who knew that this governor was the godson of Zhao Lingzi, the popular eunuch around the emperor? Several eunuchs didn't know much about anything, and they still dictated the war. One time, Lu Bachan and other soldiers were fighting bloody battles at the front, struggling to wait for food and grass from the rear. They almost dug up soil and ate it before the army food came. Later I found out that the supervisor was holding me back and refused to approve it. Lu Bachan was very angry. To them in the military, eyes are not eyes, and noses are not noses. This time he specially used a trick to leave the supervisor behind. Why did this happen again? Lu Bachan remembered General Kui Sheng's sincere words before leaving camp, asking him to remember that Lu Bachan was a general of the imperial court and had to obey the imperial court's orders. The depression in Lu Bachan's heart was so suffocating that he couldn't let it go. On the horse, he loudly ordered the messenger, "Rest where you are. Rest in place." The messengers patted their horses and passed down the mountain. After 2 days of rest, the army continued to march towards Yunzhou. 3 captains, 3 groups of soldiers and horses, each with 5,000 soldiers, divided into 3 groups to attack from Yunzhou, Puzhu, and Yuzhou to the southwest of Sichuan and Shandong and the junction of Henan. Unexpectedly, the 3 groups of troops were defeated by a group of rabble. This ragtag group was unstoppable and led its growing team towards the capital. Lu Bachan took the remaining troops to Hezhong Prefecture for help, but was rejected. He then asked for help from Gunhai Jidushi, but was rejected again. At the end of autumn and October, Su Qingnao clapped her hands happily as she watched her son crawling quickly on the mat in the backyard. Her son, who had been too lazy to move since autumn, finally learned to crawl. It's really gratifying. While crawling, the boy looked towards his own mother, and saw that his own mother was happily clapping her hands in encouragement, grinning her little mouth, drooling, and using her hands and feet in a very flattering manner, and quickly performed some crawling skills. Xiao Qingxing, Granny Zhou, Su Qingliu, and others who were watching all clapped their hands happily. This kid may have an arrogant temperament and likes to be praised by others. When he saw everyone staring at him, he lay still. When everyone encouraged and clapped their hands, the boy climbed very fast. While climbing, I looked towards the crowd, waiting for the applause from others. If you don't praise him a few words, you won't work. It was at this time that Lu Shenke entered the backyard and was so happy to see his sweet grandson crawling on the mat. Clapping his hands, Xiaobao is so amazing, he can crawl. Climb one more, and crawl one more to show grandpa. When Lu Xiaobao saw him coming, he quickly performed a crawling performance before quickly crawling into his arms. Lu Shenke picked him up and patted his hands and feet. "Grandpa's dear grandson, you must be tired from climbing. Do your little hands and feet hurt? It's getting cold now and the ground is cold. Let's not crawl anymore." As he said that, he hugged him and played with him. A few days later, Su Qingnao received news from Su Shayan that the rebels had invaded the capital Chang'an, and the emperor fled to Sichuan under the protection of the eunuch Zhao Lingzi. There was chaos in Beijing.